Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFurio. I'm your host for the show, and as always, I'm really happy to have you along. And a wave to you all out there if you're watching on YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel, and I know there's a lot of people that are continuing to subscribe. Maybe that will be you because you get to watch the conversation happen live. And then when we produce other things that are YouTube specific, you're going to be one of the first people. You'll be the first people to see it if you're subscribed and you hit the notification bell. And just generally, the podcast subscription thing, probably is a good idea because we do a lot of episodes and it keeps you up to date. So subscribe wherever you are listening. That really helps the show. And also, if you want to leave a rating or review, give us a 5-star rating over on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, and just share the episodes. That's a really great thing to do as well. Now, before we get started, I wanted to mention that we do have the key holder coaching groups coming up very soon here. If you're interested in being a part of these mastermind groups of coffee shop owners that meet together on a regular basis, this cohort lasts for about 6 months. It's 12 2-hour phone calls. Every member gets multiple hot seat focused sessions to go through specific opportunities, challenges, issues that they're wrestling with in their journey of ownership. And it really is a journey. And that's the last year of running these cohorts have been so rewarding to see people join together in community and help each other succeed. And there's been lots of great tools, advice, and insights, and just camaraderie. It's kind of lonely, when you're running a coffee shop. But these groups absolutely are a great gathering of people that actually care about each other. And it's been really great. So if you're interested in putting in an application, the link is in the show notes, or you can just email chris@keystotheshop.com. Let me know if you're interested. Let's have a conversation. Signups are still open by the time you're hearing this, but it might be another couple of weeks before we close it. So you want to put in your application now so you can get in there. You also can email that email, chris@keystotheshop.com, if you're interested in just working one-on-one with a coach and consultant to help your coffee shop improve, to help your leadership or your cafe's leadership, your management team. How do you even say that? To help you all just get better. I love working with great people in great businesses to help them be better. And that has been the case for so many of my clients over the past 6 years through Keys to the Shop Consulting. So go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com and let's see about working one-on-one together to help you create the next best version of yourself, the team, the culture, and your cafe. Again, chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, today's episode is brought to you by the Ground Control Brewer, amazing technology and innovation, groundcontrol.coffee. Also, the plant-based beverage juggernaut and leader, the Pacific Barista Series, and that you can find at pacificfoodservice.com. Now, let's jump right to talk about our guest today for Founder Friday. We are talking with Rachel Lehman, who is the co-founder, along with her husband Ben, of Crema Coffee Roasters. And I'm going to tell you this. I've been going to Crema for quite a while. I mean, I've lived in Louisville, Kentucky, which is only 2 hours from Nashville, where Crema is located, for quite a long time. I've kind of been aware of Crema since they were founded in 2007 and have always enjoyed their coffee. It's very conveniently located off of 65, the highway there, going through Nashville. And I'm always stopping there at their main location, the Hermitage Avenue location. And every time it's delicious coffee, warm and friendly service, and I don't think I've ever been disappointed. It is just last trip that I made coming back from Atlanta. I was like, it is really time to have Crema on the show. So I'm so pleased to get to welcome Rachel to the show. Rachel and her husband Ben, like I said, founded Crema back in 2007. And the cafe that they founded was born from this desire for community and a love for coffee. Rachel had been working in food service and in coffee specifically for quite a long time, and not just in barista work, but also in general management. And so taking this step to start a cafe is a pretty big one. And eventually they became roasters, and now they operate three cafes. They have their roastery and wholesale, a thriving business, and have just been a I think a rock of consistency and great service and quality since they were founded. And a lot's changed in the Nashville scene, but the timelessness of great hospitality, kindness, quality, and other things has really kept them as the standard, in my opinion, the standard of what you would really want in a coffee shop. So, in today's conversation with Rachel, we're going to be talking all about the evolution, the beginning of Crema Coffee Roasters, even pre coffee, how Rachel and Ben came to this conclusion of even just starting a coffee shop. Of course, exploring Rachel's work in coffee prior. And then from there, the phases of the building of the business. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things in the course of the conversation. We're going to talk about defining mission and values, aligning company culture with actual guest experience and how important that is, understanding every position in the company. Delegation, of course, is a huge conversation because they can't do this without a really top notch team. Even talking about hiring people with a lot of experience, even outside of coffee, to help the brand grow. Scaling the company and giving opportunities to baristas, as well as some of the keys to Crema's success, some of which are consistency and reliability. And Rachel does a great job of just opening up the history of this company and giving some very candid insights and direct advice to those of us who want to continue to do great work. And I think Crema's story is very inspiring. So, without anything else from me, let's get right to it. Here now is my conversation with the co founder of Crema Coffee Roasters, Rachel Lehman. Rachel, welcome to Keys to the Shop. Such a pleasure to have you on the show. How's it going today?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
Monday,
it's a Monday.
starting the week.
Is it really? Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes I forget. I just get lost.
yeah.
I was in your coffee shop. I'm always at the Hermitage Ave coffee shop, and when I'm passing through Nashville, I wish I spent more time in Nashville, but I always have an amazing experience there. I don't, the space, the people, the quality of the coffee. I don't know if there's much more to a coffee shop than just those three things.
hmm
And so I've consistently been impressed by Crema, and every time somebody goes to Nashville, I feel like I need to let them know that's one of the places they should go. So
Thank you.
I am really interested in exploring the story. I mean, this is kind of a hard fought for result to have a
hmm
company that puts out that kind of an experience for people. So take us back to the maybe first step of all of this. What did pre-coffee life look like? And how did coffee kind of, I suppose, become your life?
Yeah. So I have been, my first cafe job was when I was 16. When I grew up in Illinois, a very small town. And so we used intelligentsia back then, and that would have been in 1997.
Hmm.
And so coffee for me started pretty early. So it's hard to say pre-coffee life because I have been in coffee since that time. Um, but I remember the first time I had coffee often was with my great aunt and uncle. I would go spend like a week with them in the middle central Illinois, and my uncle was a Korean War veteran and just drank boatloads of coffee and had coffee breaks like 4 times a day. And so I started out drinking Folgers, like with him and my great aunt, and it was always like the coffee cigarette break for him. And all that to say, I kind of in high school just really started appreciating different types of coffee, and Starbucks was, I guess, like fairly new on the scene at that point in that area. But when I was 16, it was like the first coffee shop in the town that I grew up in of 5,000 people. So it was very Midwest. My family are all Italian farmers that settled in central Illinois in the early 1900s, and they all do now big ag farming, but years ago, smaller scale farming. Um, and so I had a really simple childhood. But the cafe was kind of cool for me because it I had worked in hospitality before. I worked in an ice cream shop, I worked in a grocery store. But I loved the community aspect of people coming in and just meeting and talking and spending time together over coffee. And we just served a pretty, basic drip coffee from Intelligentsia. We had a little espresso machine. This was obviously way before the days where you would weigh anything out or
Yeah.
take any care in the extraction of your espresso. Um, and so then I moved to college. Moved to Denver, Colorado, and when I was in college, I picked up a job out in Lakewood, Colorado, for a small roastery that had been around since the 1970s, and worked in a cafe all through college. Loved it. Again, just really loved the community of coffee, how it brings people together. I'm a really social person. So I just really kind of fell in love with it there. And the folks that had that place, they also had like spices and tea, and so it wasn't necessarily like what we think of as like third wave coffee, because this was 1999, 2000. But it was the first time I realized like coffees were from all these different origins. Like we served coffee from Papua New Guinea, we had coffee from Sumatra, and so for a lack of a better term, it was more single origin based at that time.
Yeah.
We also had, you know, but I really fell in love with coffee there and realized I went to school for music, which is, I think, a huge, it informs so much of the practice of excellence in me. And so I think that that translates over to coffee in a lot of ways. And so the
Mm.
way that we approach training to me reminds me so much of how, musicians work and, practice over and over and over again to become better and sharper at skills. I feel like I apply a lot of the things I learned in music school directly to coffee. Um, and so, interesting enough, I think that's where a lot of the excellence kind of drivenness comes from. It's also part of my personality, but I think that those things are kind of related for me in a way. Also, being in Nashville, it's interesting because we have so many musicians, and so it's interesting because we can relate a lot of the things that I think that there's a lot of musicians that fall in love with the art of coffee too, because I think there's a lot of parallels there. Um, so that's kind of a long way around, but I have been in coffee for a very long time. And I think I was first drawn in just by the act of it, like the making of it, making something with my hands, and then also the community and the people aspect of it.
I love the way you related that to music because and I wanted to dig into that a little bit because it feels like something that I've told people with latte art is you're creating something temporary that's
Yeah.
a discipline that you work hard to create a moment.
Hmm.
And I'm when you say there's a parallel between music and coffee for you is something that kind of clicks. What do you really what do you mean by that? What for you is the real similarity?
I think there's this idea that oftentimes people bring to specifically learning coffee, that it's something you have or don't have. And I try to encourage our team that when you start out, we have to start somewhere with the basics. You have to just learn the mechanics of it and then the why behind it later. Um,
Hmm.
and so it is something you have to work and practice at to get better. You don't have the skill or not have the skill. Same
Yeah.
thing with when it comes to sensory learning. I became a Q grader, but it was really hard. I was like, this was really hard for me. I had to work really hard to pass. But it's something that I learned over time that I can get better at. And so I think with music, it's similar. There's a lot of frustration at times when you're learning a new skill or learning a new piece of music. And there's kind of these mental blocks that can happen. And then, but you have to continually have the discipline to practice over and over and over again. And and like once you understand the theory and the why behind music, it makes it actually easier. So I think like uh just kind of seeing how those things come together is how I think of the parallel. And so um yeah, I just try to encourage our team. Like some people are going to pick this skill up quick and some are going to take longer, and that's completely okay. Everyone learns at their own pace.
That
So,
makes a lot of sense. It
mhm,
feels as though also your ability to enter into the enjoyment of coffee is a skill in a kind of itself, like learning
mhm,
to appreciate a lot of different varieties of coffees and
mhm,
giving yourself the opportunity to be exposed to those things, like different styles of music or different ways to approach different techniques within a genre or something like that. Um, when you decide now to go from a appreciator of coffee, someone who's seen parallels between coffee and music, I mean, what did it look like for you to take a professional step into coffee as an owner to start Crema? And I'm kind of curious because I don't know, did you start roasting first, or was it roasting in cafe, or how did that happen?
so it was, so I had worked in Nashville in a cafe for 5 years as a general manager, before we started Crema. And I kind of told my husband, I was like, I will stay in this role for 5 years. Like I
Hmm.
will, because in 5 years, I feel like you can learn something. And I learned a lot. Um, and, but I realized at the end of that tenure that I was there, I think I was like, I'm ready for this. I actually really enjoy this. I enjoy working hard. I enjoy teamwork. I enjoy coffee. I enjoy learning. I enjoy the customer base and the community. Um, and so we took a step, and it was really risky and scary, in the building that you're talking about, because that location was pretty dicey at the time, but it was affordable. And my husband and I bootstrapped the business and just decided like we'll sign a 3-year lease with a 7-year option, and if the whole thing blows up, it'll blow up in 3 years. So we can do this. So my husband worked in corporate marketing at the time, and he really, was our he was the way that we could do this, because it took almost 6-7 years before Crema became actually profitable for us to live off of. So we started out as a cafe, and we had half the space at that location at the time, so really small. It was 800 square feet. We rented out the other half of the building, and then built the cafe up over 3 years. It was we opened right as the recession began,
Mm,
2008. So really terrible time to launch a business, which we had no foresight into, because it was 6 months earlier that we had signed that lease. And it was scary, but built it slow and steady with a really great team. I still know most of our original team still today, like hang out with some of them as friends. Um, and it just, I feel like it's one customer at a time. You build it. And so around year 3 is when, we were shipping in so much coffee from out of the state. Also at that time, certain companies weren't, some of the bigger coffee companies weren't shipping coffee to Nashville because we weren't in their training zones. There was a lot more parameters that a lot of these bigger roasters wanted us to
yeah.
follow. So, which I totally understood. Pretty different than it is today. But we decided to roast coffee and just get into it. I was like, we'll figure it out, just like we figured out the cafe. And so Winston Harrison, who's still our lead roaster and green buyer, he's still with us today. He was actually a customer of ours at Crema. He'd come in and buy coffee. He was a yoga instructor, retired bassist. I mean, he still plays music, but kind of was trying to find ways to get off the road. And he just had a really great palate. And I was like, I think you could do this. Like, I think you could figure this out with me. And so we bought a Diedrich IR12, and you know, just kind of scrapped it together for a while, kind of learning as we could from the friends that we had within the coffee industry. Um, Developed some relationships with some producers through some of the roasters that we had used prior to roasting. Worked with David Buer in Houston some to buy some coffee together. We're trying to just find these like grassroots ways to be able to source really great coffee, And then it took us, I will say, I feel like it took us 4 or 5 years to really get our feet under us, around like what style of roasting we were, um, and how we wanted to best present ourselves in the roasting space. So I feel pretty good about like where we are now. And I know Winston is always trying to get better. And we've worked with just different outside, um, people like consultants to help us just give us some feedback and give us some improvements. And so always just trying to find ways to get better at buying coffee, roasting coffee, making sure the production team is feeling really good about consistency. So yeah, it's kind of the roasting thing just felt natural because of, like I said, we were shipping in hundreds of pounds a week, and it just started to feel a little crazy. And we wanted control. I mean, to be honest, we were just like, we would love control over the roasted product, because most people in Nashville that were roasting at the time were doing pretty dark roasted coffee, and
Yeah.
so yeah,
I guess it may be the equivalent between doing really good at covering another person's song versus writing your own in some
yeah,
ways.
hmm hmm
Now, there's two ways you're expressing yourself here. There's the cafe, and by the way, I just want to mention saying to somebody, "Well, I'm just going to do this for 5 years because I feel like I could learn something in 5 years." That's I'd say it's unique because even at the valleys of those moments, like 2 years in, it's like, no, I'm out. This is I'm not going to stick around for 2 years. To say 5 years right up front and then commit to it, I think that's so commendable. Because you're right, it is a very sometimes the cycle for getting that wisdom that makes all the difference in your later success is at the other end of that moment where you feel like this is really 5 years is a long time."
yeah,
um,
yeah.
your cafe and your roasting, so you're expressing yourself through this.
hmm
Um, but you're bootstrapping it. And so there's got to be some way that you're judging whether or not you're actually accomplishing your goal. What were the values you wanted to portray through the cafe and then through the coffee that let you know, even though it wasn't as ideal as you wanted it, maybe it wasn't as big, or you didn't have all the stuff you wanted, you were still accomplishing your goal?
I think like one thing that really helped pivot Crema, and I think I'm answering the question, um, when we started getting our feet underneath of us as a roastery and cafe, my husband was able to leave his job and come help really define our company with like some of his business and marketing background. We rebranded the company Crema Coffee Roasters because it was just Crema. Um, we really tried to sit down and put together what our mission was as a company, what's important to us, what are the things, what is the purpose and what is the mission, and what are we always measuring our decision making against. And so he really helped me sit down and really define what that is, the look, the feel, the purpose. Um, and I think that was around, I want to say around the year 6 mark that we did a lot of that hard work. And I remember at the time it felt foreign to me, because I was like, of course I know it's important to us, but to actually start to put down things like we're gonna try to be zero waste, like that's gonna be one of our tenants, like we're gonna try our best to source really intentionally from coffee to tumblers to food and local products that we can carry. We're going to try to be as transparent about the ways that we go and do those things. Um, and we're going to take care of our people, and we're going to offer these well-being benefits, and we're going to try our best to instill like this really positive, meaningful culture for people, and hope that over time, like people, when they come to my goal for people at Crema is when they come in that they learn something about themselves and they're better when they leave. I know that most people that work at Crema might only be with us for a year or two, and a lot of them are in this place in life where they're trying to figure things out, which is okay. And so I think it makes it tricky, but I think like really getting our purpose together and like driving home that this is who we are, this is who we want to be in Nashville as a company, and this is the vision for the company, that really helped align all the leaders. And then that obviously set us up to better for the future growth that we had. So I think having some of that outside help um, from my husband, and I would say he is equally a partner in the business too. Um, but it was like I feel like that was like a transforming part for the company, and really kind of set us up for like grounding for who we were going to be. Yeah.
And at that point, you like mentioned you were doing, or you knew what your values were, but you were organizing and codifying these things through this exercise at the year 6 mark. And so, just coffee shops in general, there's this organic growth period where you're putting together what you want to do in coffee from all the wisdom that you've gained working as a barista, working as a GM. And so your instincts then become, I don't want to use the word productized because that sounds weird, but they become sort of encapsulated into these values. And so you're saying it made it easier to really keep focused. I imagine because it became kind of complex, your business kind of grew by year 6. Now you're roasting coffee,
Hmm.
you're serving people out of this cafe. In that you still had just one cafe, right?
Hmm. Yeah, at that time we did. It was one cafe. We were roasting. Year 2 of roasting, we decided to start taking on wholesale accounts. And then we started doing, and really from year 2 or 3, we started doing coffee classes to the public. So I always consider that just like something that we do offer, just to share knowledge with people. And, we love when customers get it. So we're trying to like try to, bring them into the experience. And then the online business, we started shipping. And back then, I mean, it was like no one was really buying online. Like it was just sort of a, not to be like an afterthought, but it just didn't have the same power as it does now. Um, like our online business has, like everyone else, it grew during the pandemic, and now it's like a
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
thing. So, um, but yeah, I would say like it took us some time to kind of figure out who we wanted to be in the world, and then as we started to formulate what that was, that's when we did a renovation. We did like a brand, like I said, a brand redesign, and update, and then really started to put down like, this is our mission and purpose. And that's something that I cover with every new employee. Like I host a class every month with all new staff members because I think it's really important for people to know where we've come from, where we're going, and then also just what is important to Crema. Because we have like a brand guide and all these things, and I talk about it, but I'm like, if we aren't living in the real third space the way that we want to be presented in the world with our guest service and our experience, it's one thing to present it online a certain way, but it's another when you go into a cafe or a place and you're disappointed because the experience does not match what the company culture is trying to state. And so it's really important to me that there's alignment from my position to everyone. And so it's really hard. It's a lot of work. But
What's the secret? How do you now see, this was the thing that really made the difference between platitudes that just kind of fall flat versus values that are actually put into action in the daily life of a cafe?
so it's multiple things. It's planning every year and quarter, like what are goals for each department and each cafe. And then it's building a team of leaders. So having really clear job descriptions for every single person that works in every single cafe, everything from GM, assistant GM, shift leader, barista trainer, all the way down to like dishwasher. Like having really clear cut job descriptions and building your like bench of leaders is super important. So keeping leaders aligned, which then trickles down into their teams, is super important. So spending time with our leaders weekly, quarterly, and then working with them to understand like, these are the company goals for the year, this is what we hope to achieve this year, these are the benchmarks and the ways in which we're going to get there, and break those up by quarter so it doesn't feel overwhelming to everyone, which can be tricky in the cafe space because GMs and AGMs, and I get it, I've done it, it's like you think you're going to have all this time, and then all of a sudden you have this crazy HR issue pop up, or all of a
Yeah.
sudden everyone's leaving because they got a job. And so I think it's just building the teams to really take on and delegate that leadership. And for me, it's just spending time with those people, coaching and having that like coaching culture mindset is super important. Huge Brené Brown fan over here. Uh, read all her books, and yeah, like I'm going to Will Guidera's conference here in New York. I'm really excited about in September with our director of operations, who we hired a couple years ago to help me out.
Wow.
Which
The
we're both
welcome
really
conference,
excited.
right?
Yeah, we're really excited to do that because I think that the coffee space could use a little bit more of that injection of hospitality.
Hmm.
I don't see as much of that offered at coffee focused conferences, which I think is half of what we do. So, um,
It's a little shocking. It's the
yeah.
cleaning and it's the hospitality that becomes
Hmm.
so apparent that it's 85% of what you do, and the
Yep.
craft of coffee becomes the work that you use to procrastinate on not doing the other things.
Hmm. Yeah. And I love the coffee piece, but they have to go hand in hand. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. That's awesome. And the idea that you're keeping the alignment with the leaders and all of the different issues that leaders have,
Hmm.
also different responsibilities that, from someone who's leading a roasting team
Yep.
to somebody who's leading a cafe team. How important is alignment when it comes to cross departmental leadership?
Yeah, that is really hard. I feel like that is my role, and also the our operations director, trying to, it's like there's like marketing, and then there's roasting, and then there's the online, and then there's the cafe space, and we have three cafes we're managing. And I think trying to everyone kind of, it's easy to get in a silo. And um, the one thing that we've done to help bring everyone together, when it's like not to overly schedule meetings, but it is really important before we release a coffee, before we release a new menu, that all the right people are in the same room talking about everything, the timelines, the deadlines, the things needed, the resources needed, whether that's, oh, I need a trainer, I need our lead trainer to be down in this location because we don't have a barista trainer right now, like we're hiring
Hmm.
or what. So it's really important that we have those meetings monthly before we put any products out. And so everyone can be on the same page because there's always questions. Um, and then we, as leaders across the company, meet more on the higher level quarterly. Just talk about, we talk about the quarterly budget to actuals. So we talk about financials. They get financials every month. Um, we talk about how the company performed on a quarterly basis for the prior month. We talk about what's coming up, what we're expecting, and then any big initiatives that are coming up. And so it is a tricky balance of trying to pull everyone out and have some white space from the cafes when they can. Um, and also know that, hey, there's going to be times where the GMs can't leave. And, we're going to have to go in and support them however we can to make this thing launch.
Yeah.
So because what's interesting about my position is I have done almost every job in the company. So I'm not a great roaster. It's been years since I did it, but I have done it. So I understand every single position that's in the company. And I think that makes my perspective pretty unique because I have a lot of understanding and empathy for what it can be like if something goes wrong, or someone doesn't show up for work, or this person gets injured and we need to figure out what to do about that. So it's like I think that is a really helpful resource being in my position, and our leaders feel very comfortable coming to me. I think they feel reassured because they know, like, oh, you've done this before. I'm like, yes, I understand. um,
Yeah.
so it is a unique position, but it's really trying to schedule that white space of time outside of the cafe hours, and um, making sure people are prioritizing that.
What
Yeah.
is your structure right now? How many managers, ops managers? What does that look
hmm
like?
Yeah. So for the, I hate this term, but for the lack of better term, there's like the Crema LLC umbrella, which is myself. I'm the managing partner of the business. I hate the word CEO, but I guess that's my if you wanted to say my responsibilities, that's my responsibilities. I have a director of operations, Perry Chen. Perry has worked in hospitality for 20 plus years, fine dining, and uh, most recently hot chicken for 10 years. Has never worked in coffee before, but has a completely different skill set than I can build a 50 tab budget and make it understandable, can build up, projections and help me understand just like the financial picture of the business. Um, we have a really great accounting company that, for a lack of a better term, is like our CFO. And so she's really great and helps me understand where we are financially, where we are leverage wise, like how we can um, think about areas to grow in. And then we have our marketing team. So we have a lead marketer, and Jess has been with us for several years and been in coffee for a long time. Victoria Quirk, who does social media and makes us look pretty. She does all our photos, and she helps with all kinds of different things, PR, um, uh, designing, any kind of marketing materials that we need. So we have a marketing team. And then we have a lead trainer, Cody Wood. He helps us by basically training trainers. And he's the lead trainer. So when we have new hires and people in, I always, I I impress upon all our managers, like, the onboarding process and training process is so fundamental and important to the success of the company for consistency, but also for stress levels, because we're very busy cafes, um, very high volume. And so, really making sure people feel really confident before releasing into the world. But he oversees the process of all training and onboarding. And so, making sure baristas go from all the different classes that they need to attend with him, all the hands on learning, and
Yeah.
then translating that onto the floor, and then it culminates in a barista exam. So he's responsible for that for all three cafes. So that's just like our kind of corporate structure. and
Yeah.
then and then the teams that kind of are underneath is we have the cafes, and each one has a general manager, an assistant general manager, and a shift leaders and trainers. And then our roasting company, we have someone. Winston is over. Sorry, this is a lot of people, because it's like we have our accountants always like, you have a very, like, your business is small, like we have 50 employees, but it's very complex. Like, I know it's kind of crazy. Um, and then the roasting company, Winston is in charge of green vine and roasting. And so, really making sure the production team is on point, training production roasters, working through logistics, and, figuring out what we need for buying out. And then Tom Valentine is our wholesale lead and trainer. And so, he is like in charge of basically running the customer side of the wholesale program, along with we have a production manager as well, Melinda. But his role is to onboard new wholesale accounts, provide training, provide resources, go out and calibrate machines or set things up for people, be on site and available to wholesale accounts. And so, um, yeah, so the roastery is a small team of about 6 people. Um, and then the cafes, the Hermitage location and Brentwood, are about the same size. They have about 18 staff members. And then our little takeaway coffee bar has about 6 staff members. So it's a lot, but we're
I
all
was gonna
here.
say that I love how organized everything is, and that each person feels they're contributing to the company in this leadership team that you've got,
Mm-hmm.
is a big accomplishment. Uh, and at the same, when you hear all of those roles, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard enough to justify when you've been doing everything
Mhm.
putting that first manager in place
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
saying, I am going to pay this person more money to do this stuff that I will not have to do. And in return, I'm going to free
Mhm.
myself up to make the company more money so I can
Mhm.
afford this person. And
Mhm.
then we're going to keep doing that. Now, 16 years later, you've got this army of people, all of which, people who don't have a manager in place now, or even just are having one, are thinking, I can't even imagine having that many people on payroll doing all of those leadership
Mhm.
jobs. And you didn't just they didn't drop into existence out of nowhere,
Mm. No.
but you had to give up a lot of things in order to free them up to do those roles, to delegate
Mhm.
to them. What was that journey like of sort of pulling yourself out of some of the work, giving that work away and delegating it, and finding your identity as the owner as you exist now versus the wearer of all hats, so to speak?
I mean, I feel like it's been an interesting trajectory because I feel like there's been little points along the way where, like, the first manager I hired was 3 years into Crema, and it was out of necessity because I was having a baby. I was like, oh, I can't do this. And again, it created that piece where it was hard, but we paid someone and we didn't, it like Crema, we were bootstrapping it. I mean, we really didn't see income for 6, 7 years. And I knew that we kind of knew that going into it, because we just kept reinvesting money, as it was
Hmm.
like, oh, as you grow, you're like, oh, now we got to reinvest here. And it's kind of a similar story even now, but it's just like having the right people in the right seats. I realized after the pandemic, we had two cafes at that point, and I was running around trying to help and assist and just honestly scrap it together and not and keep everyone employed. That was my biggest like goal that whole whatever
Yeah.
2 years. Um, and and then I think like Ben and I have always wanted this company to go beyond just us, meaning that we want it to be around for a long time. People that work with us are really invested in this business. We have a manager that's been with us since year one. He's still with us, Mark. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, so having these people, and I think for me, it was like, oh yeah, I can't, this will be at the expense of me. And I want this to go beyond me. And I also want to give opportunity to other people. And so making the choice to grow Crema by adding another location in Brentwood, but I knew we needed help. Like I knew we needed extra hands and people that have scaled businesses before. We do have some business partners we've had for 3 years now. We've learned a lot from them and gained a lot of insight into scaling. We they helped hire our director of ops, and he is someone that he is way more experienced than I am. But it's awesome having someone. I was like, I don't really need I need someone that can help me like run this business and help me scale, and someone who has scaled a company. And he was the vice president of operations for Hattie B's here in Nashville, and grew that business from 2 locations to 9, and has a real estate background, has a business degree background, tech background. So it's just all the things that I don't possess. That I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, this is great. And then he and I have worked together in the past. We actually he was the opening general manager at Pinewood Social, which is how we had met. And we have a coffee bar at Pinewood Social, and I guess that opened just about 12 years ago. Um, and so we've known each other that long. But he joined us 2 years ago, and yeah, it felt risky. It felt like, oh my gosh, are we really going to hire someone like this? But it's Perry's help and expertise and insight for me has just been invaluable. And um, yeah, it's like such an amazing experience to have
Hmm.
someone on your team that just has been there before. And yeah, and has a different lens kind of coming. It's also nice having someone from the outside looking in, someone that hasn't worked in coffee, to see like, wow, okay, like let's talk about these P&Ls. Like, let's really, really dig into this and like,
Yeah.
find ways to like make some sense of this and help our managers make sense of this and help them feel empowered to have control over how they're operating these different businesses. So I would say for me, it was letting go of me having to know everything and then to realize I can lean and learn from all these other people and having more people around me to help. So,
Yeah, I love that perspective. And there's this, it feels like you're importing this talent from, you want that to be a part of the deep bench of talent in your
mm-hmm,
company. So there's a limit to raising people up from within the company, which you have done also. So that it
mm-hmm,
feels like there's this
mm-hmm,
balance of, hey, this Mark's been with us for 16 years or
mm-hmm,
so,
mm-hmm,
and now we've got this other guy coming in, and he's never been in coffee, but he's using these skills for us so that coffee can be a more sustainable business
mm-hmm,
for Crema.
mm-hmm,
And then there's the alignment, back to the alignment thing, where a lot of people might be taken for a ride by somebody who says, well, this is the way we do it in the corporate world, and they are afraid that that's going to overwhelm the culture of the coffee, so they're just going to become taken over by the imported corporate know-how and and all that stuff. How do you balance the identity piece of this while bringing in outside talent to help grow the company so that it doesn't sort of damage the culture, and you stay true to who you are while also scaling gracefully?
yeah, it's a really tough. I think it's a really tough balance. I know for me it was hard at the beginning because am I love this business. I love what I get to do. I love the people I work with. For me, making money wasn't like the number one reason I got into coffee. So if it was, wrong business. But also learning that, hey, we do need to have a healthy, sustainable bottom line in order to fund future projects, to fund new espresso machines, or a space like our downtown location is 16 years old. There's always, hopefully we can sign another lease term there in the next couple of years, but it's like, those things do cost money. And as we've lived in Nashville, the hard thing is Nashville's become so expensive to operate in. um, so our money doesn't stretch as far as it used to a
Hmm.
decade ago. And so we are, at a place where I've learned that having a healthy profit margin is really for a healthy company too. So, so we can reinvest in the business, we can make those decisions, and we can um, continue this business on for, hopefully decades to come. Um, and we are at a interesting pain point where, like with our roastery, we really do need to look at some opportunities for growth. But again, real estate here has become very expensive. Um, I love Nashville, but in one sense, there's like been this crazy explosion of growth. But there's a lot of Fortune 500 companies that have moved in for property, and so it's just changed commercial real estate um, altogether. And so it's tricky. We'll figure it out, and I'm hopeful about it. But it is a different place than when we first started. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, 16 years, Nashville. I mean, I don't live there. I've been in Louisville, Kentucky, which is kind of a neighbor, for 10 years. And I just have seen so many brands and restaurants and coffee shops. Everything is just exploding. And Crema's been the OG kind of in Nashville for all that time. It really has stayed as an anchor of coffee, um, and maintaining this identity and this culture throughout all of that time. It's no small feat, because a lot of people will want to compete against the new kid on the block, or whatever corporate threat might be looming at that time. I'm sure a lot of people say, "Hey, did you hear that so and so is moving to Nashville? Are you scared? Are you? And I wonder how you view that, because I know you have a very big community focus, and so I imagine that's part of how you view the coffee community. But when people kind of talk about these things, even just now, like it's so expensive, and then there's all this competition, how do you kind of calm the waters of those conversations and remain steady yourself as an operator?
Well, I've kind of always been my mantra for a long time, but I encourage our folks not to focus on the competition, just to focus on what we do and how we can do it better, and
Hmm.
get feedback from customers, feedback from each other. It's actually really easy as we well, first of all, as we grew from 30 to 50 people last year, I realized very quickly it is very easy not to be intentional about where we put and focus our attention. So
Mm.
this year, one of our pieces of focus was like, we have to focus on leadership development. We need to focus on um, like barista training and development, and really focus on hospitality. Because for me, I think we'll always win if we can be that kind and friendly place that people know we're consistently that place. And there's always going to be new people moving in. And I think that's actually good. I think there's a lot of um, creativity in coffee in Nashville. I see a lot of people that are starting businesses up are very passionate about, if it's a coffee and taco place like Tempo, like they're super passionate about what they do. And I love going there. Like, I think it's great. I love seeing coffee expressed in different ways. Um, I think we just have to remember to just stay true to who we are and express coffee in the way that we want to, and not get, you know, like totally unfocused by all the different places that have opened and how different they are, and how every place kind of has its thing, and that's okay. Like, I think that's great, and I think it's something
Mm.
to celebrate. And I think for us, it's just, I want us to be that place that like is just very, very consistently not the same, but like consistently friendly, and like something that like people can really rely on. Like, we are reliable, and that's how we're always going to be. So and I think that is part of our success story, because we are a very busy cafe. I mean, our cafes are very busy. We have some weekends where we're making 500-600 drinks, on a day, and it's just like we're high volume, which is really great. But then there's always challenges with that too. How do we maintain that reliability?
It's hard not to be conscious of it because it's in your face all the time. But, it's hard enough to focus on the stuff that you have to do within the ecosystem of your own business, let alone manage all of the other inputs. So you don't have your head in the sand. You've just got your focus is on the stuff you're supposed to be focused on. That's why you are who you are. Um, in just real quick, actually, I was curious about your comment how it became apparent when you went from 30 to 50 people that it would be easy to become unfocused. What do you mean it became apparent? What was the feeling, or what was the occurrence that made you think, "Oh my gosh, yeah, this feels like it could go that direction. Let's not have it do that."
I think when you add people, you add more, for a lack of a better term, people problems and busyness and more work. It's just, it's kind of expanding, like uh, how much energy you need to pour into each team. And I think where it could be easy is to not prioritize trainings, or not prioritize that white space to get together, or prioritize like the hospitality meetings and processes we have. Like, it's easy to kind of just be like, oh, we're just so busy now. We have all these things to take care of. We're not going to like refocus on training and the core of who we are. And so that
Yeah.
was kind of my challenge to everyone this last year, was like, this is great. We've grown, but now that the true rubber meets the road is, how are we going to do that with this many more people and maintain our quality and
Hmm.
consistency and guest experience? And so, um, And you just have to be proactive about it, like actually talk about it instead of just thinking it's going to magically happen. Because I think it's easy to think
Yeah.
like, oh, it'll just magically happen. And it's like, well, no, like it actually requires a lot of resources of time and energy and people to do this. So, and it has to be a priority of the company too. So,
Yeah.
I think
Good.
that was something that I remember Perry kind of telling me that as he had seen growth and other businesses he had worked in, he was just like, it's really easy to lose focus as you grow. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I see.
Would you consider yourself a hands-on leader still, but just putting your hands on different things in the business than it was before?
Yeah, I mean, I still um, love going into the shops. I'm hoping to like work in the shops here like more often, and I love to pop in and see customers and assist our staff through a rush. And you'll see me like breaking down cardboard boxes and doing the dirty work nobody wants to do too. So I still, and I think that stuff really matters to people. My goal as a leader is to support our leaders. So I'm like, if there's anything I can take off your plate that would just make your life so much easier, whether that's calling the pressure washer guy because somebody used our wall as a bathroom, or running over to running to the store to get milk because someone forgot to place a milk order. Like I'm I am always ready and available, and I want our leaders to know that they can ask that of me. And of course, if I can't do it, I will say no. But I mean, my goal is to have that servant leadership where I am not above any task or job. Um, and so trying to figure out how to balance like being in the cafes, because it's actually the thing that I miss the most now in my position is not being in those spaces as much. But knowing it's necessary, like to be where I am, leading the company. But I try to get in there. It's kind of like a treat when I get to work a shift. I'm like, oh yeah, I get to work a shift. Like I get to like bring, like I get to work on bar. I get to like bring people, like I get to work register. I love it. So um, yeah,
That's
so I
great.
still do try to pop in and do those things as I can. Yeah, it's harder to do it on a more
Awesome.
consistent basis, but I'm finding ways now to kind of get my footing to where I can probably do that more. So, yeah.
One thing that I am wanting, this last question for us today, and this has been such a great conversation. I am, of course, wanting to know how you would choose to encourage other operators these days. What would be the most important thing that you find yourself saying to other operators to encourage them to pursue success with their business and with their people?
I think one of the biggest things that I have learned over the years, and especially in the last 5 years during the pandemic, and I think operators overlook this piece often, is get set up with a really, really great accountant and CPA and
Mm,
CFO to understand your business financially. Because if you don't understand where you are financially, it's hard to make gains in certain areas that you might need to address. Um, and then I would say another thing that's really important is to delegate and hold people accountable. I think like it's easy to take on everything. I mean, I've tended to do that myself, and I'm very aware that I tend to do that. Um, but also to like allow people, like to delegate and allow people to make mistakes and help them learn through those mistakes and have that learning culture and coaching culture is super important for leaders. It helps you grow and detach a little bit in a healthy way from the business, but also it allows someone else to grow professionally and then really appreciate other ideas and creativity that they'll bring to the table and curiosity that they'll bring to the table. So I think for me, those are kind of like two big areas of which I've had to grow a lot in over the years. But when I really started understanding my accounting and my numbers, I was able to make better decisions about how to move, where to
mm,
invest time and money and energy in the business. And it's oftentimes when I, have conversations with people that come to me for things, it's just they really don't know where they're at financially. And that's really hard.
Yeah.
So it's kind of expensive, but it's also very worth it to have a professional help you in those areas. And then in leadership, yeah, I just think like finding ways for your own self to develop as a leader yourself, and then also learn how you want to influence and mold and shape the leadership team that you have around you. So I think those are two very important things. I mean, the coffee stuff is great. I love all the coffee stuff, and I could wax poetic about coffee forever. But to be honest, I don't spend, I spend probably 10% of my time on that. And I let others in our company do that, which is sad in some ways, but also very necessary for the company. So, yeah.
You provide those kind of blissful moments for people. You work hard so that other people don't have to work hard to enjoy coffee, right? And everything that you said is the kind of thing that allows you to sleep at night, I'm sure, to know that the business really is healthy, and I'm healthy, my people are taken care of, and I'm not sure what else could be a definition of success except that feeling like, I really could drink a cup of coffee right now and feel like
Yeah.
all is
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Rachel.
Thank you.
How can we stay in touch with Crema? How should we go buy coffee and just learn more?
Well, I mean, if you're ever in Nashville, we have three cafes that people can visit, and all three of them are pretty conveniently located along Interstate 65. One north of town, one central in town, Hermitage, the one in Brentwood. So I would say visit any of our cafes when you're in town. We do roast and ship coffee 5 days a week. So if you go to cremacoffeeroasters.com, you can order coffee from us and we'll ship it same or next day. We also offer coffee subscriptions to folks, anything from blends only to single origin coffees. And then you can follow us on Instagram, Crema. That's us. Um, so I would say any one of those ways is a good way to connect through our website, social media, or in person in one of our cafes. So yeah,
Excellent. Well, thank
yeah,
you so much for opening up about the business and your journey as an owner. This has been fantastic to hear, and it's great to get you on the show to share it with the Keys to the Shop audience. We appreciate you.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. Huge thank you to Rachel for being on the show and sharing so much from the heart what that journey has been like for the last 16 years of Crema Coffee Roasters. We're so thankful for the work you do and all that you all have built and how it's impacted the industry and your community. And I really am impressed, by this conversation's focus on a kind of humble pursuit of something that is powerfully connecting, whether it's connecting with the values of the company and making sure that the experience connects with those values, or it's finding the right people and really investing heavily into them to empower them and give them opportunities and connecting that way, or it's connecting with the greater industry of coffee and pursuing great business practices that perpetuate a great standard for excellence in working in coffee. And then, of course, the community of Nashville and being a bedrock, being a pillar in the community. That consistency and reliability is a huge thing. So I'm glad we kind of ended on that note with Rachel's advice. And I would encourage you, go out and experience Crema Coffee Roasters for yourself. You can find more information over at crema-coffee.com. Also, check them out and follow them on Instagram at crema. Try their coffee, go to their shops, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So if you have any questions, comments, or feedback from me about today's episode, or you are just wanting to talk or chat, make suggestions, or anything like that, just email chris@keystotheshop.com. And also, if you're interested in Keys to the Shop's consulting and coaching services, then you can use that email as well, chris@keystotheshop.com. And with that, that is the end of our show. I really appreciate you being here for another a great Founder Friday. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.